A few weeks ago I put up the video on the compost chimney, which is located right there where you can't see it. What's powering the compost chimney? It's actually this stuff right here. The mound that I'm standing on, this humongous area, which is about 25 by 50 feet at its biggest dimensions, is essentially the surplus from my landscaper neighbor and other landscapers in the area. And I wanted to take this video to just talk about how much surplus is out there in the system and how, if you can find an appropriate use for that surplus, you take a problem, you make it the solution. In this case, these 2 loads of tree trimmings for my neighbor are a problem for him. He's a landscape maintenance technician, if you will, and what he does is does a lot of trimming. He doesn't have a chipper, so he doesn't chip this stuff down. That's why I don't get mulch, but he would normally have to take this and haul it to the dump, and they'll charge him a tipping fee. Now, certain places won't charge that if he's bringing in green waste, but he does have to drive there and come back. What I've got him to do and used to doing is just call me if he's got a load and he asks, hey, do you want it? And if I can, I could save him a whole bunch of problems in terms of having to drive it there, having to come all the way back, save all the time, save any tipping fee. So I get a lot of this waste. So what I'm standing on right now is a whole bunch of stuff like this with a big dirt cap on it. Why am I doing this? I'm gonna step back here and I'll show you how I'm using all this waste to expand where I'm actually standing on right now. So out here in California, land is prohibitively expensive in many cases, and you're kind of stuck with what you get when you get it. And in my case, I'm stuck with what I have. I have 6/10 of an acre. Now, some of that acre's sloped, like right behind me here, and some of it is flat, like I have right here. And this is flat because I've made it flat. So what I'm trying to do is take a lot of the waste stream from my landscaper neighbor and use that to take land that would otherwise be not so usable for what I want to use it for, think vegetable gardening, and being able to flatten it out so I can garden vegetables on it. So I'm taking land that's not really usable for what I want to use it for and making it usable. It's a way of kind of getting free land. I'm boundary limited here on this lot. This lot's 6/10 of an acre. It is now, it is forever. I can't buy any more land. So if I can manufacture more land that I can use in a way that I want, that's really beneficial to me, because each little increment of land that I add by flattening this area out is actually a lot of money. It's worth a lot to me because I don't have the option to expand. So if I could make more land that I have that's unusable, usable, that's a win. So what I've been able to do is take a lot of the surplus from my landscaper neighbor and I just kind of pile it off the edges like you see here. And then I gradually come in later on and get fill dirt and put it down. Is it optimum? No, not really. But the good thing about this is, or the why here is, it kind of comes down again to context. I can get a lot of this type of surplus material for free, easily delivered right to where I need it. There's not a lot of asking, there's very little barriers, it just shows up. So what I can then do is use this to form a base layer, knowing that it's not the best in terms of it's gonna compact down, it's gonna settle down, it's gonna decompose over time. That's okay. And then I'll come back later and put fill dirt on it. Fill dirt's a little harder to come by out here, especially in quantities. You know, a yard here, 3 yards here don't really help me. I want it delivered in quantity. I want like 10 or 15 yards. The problem is when I do get 10 or 15 yards, I have to move that all by hand or I have to rent equipment. So getting a whole bunch of fill dirt periodically just dumped here doesn't really solve my problem, and it actually creates more work for me because I don't have a bobcat or a front end loader or a little tractor to push it all around. I'm the tractor in that case. So the nice thing about using all this scrap is I can move it by hand. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this, throwing it over the edge here because I'm trying to push the limits kind of back to that tree as far as I can get right there, and then I'll come in later and put soil on top of it, knowing the soil will squish down all the organic matter. The plus in this is kind of like a hugelkultur thing. I'm getting rid of this organic matter, which is going to eventually decompose in place, and it'll add organic matter to the soil, which I'm growing plants on top of. Now, I'm trying to match form to function here, so I'm not gonna put a structure here, a shed here, knowing that the ground is settling over time, which is fine. So what I'm doing is I'm just growing vegetables on here. So vegetable beds, if they settle out season over season, that's not a big deal. The Depth changes aren't gonna be an issue for me. So, and I'll eventually keep building those beds up by top layering compost on them, helping to flatten the land out. Eventually this land will kind of reach maximum compaction, like it'll settle out as much as it's ever gonna settle. And then at that point I can gradually start flattening it out more and more. So the fact that this is kind of an ever-changing landscape here isn't a big issue given what I'm using it for, vegetables. If I was gonna put a structure here, this wouldn't be ideal. So this is kind of what I call a cheater fill, taking all this vegetative matter and then filling it in an area and bringing soil in on top of it. And it's a way to fill up an area using a lot less soil or a lot less compost than you normally would have. This is just another view here of what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm basically pushing this edge of the pile out this way, and I'm pushing the back edge out that way. I'm pushing this out about 3 feet, maybe 4 feet, and I'm pushing it out that side about 5 feet. It doesn't sound like a lot, but as I said before, it's expensive. So any foot or two that I can gain, that's really valuable to me. You know, 3 feet out, that's another vegetable bed space that I can put in. And if I can go out 5 feet this way, that's another 5 feet of bed length that I can put in. So it's worth it for me to incrementally add these little bits and pieces. Now, initially I was thinking about farming on this plot this year, as I talked about in the weed control video with tarps, and I decided against that. I'm just not gonna have the time, the bandwidth to do it. So I figured, you know, this corner isn't out as much as I want. Since I'm not gonna be farming here, I might as well take the time and push this corner out some more, knowing I'm not gonna get to this probably until the following spring. So next February of 2018, that'll give this whole thing time to settle out. I can come back in with compost later on, hopefully get some fill dirt on top of this and have that settle out. Maybe I can get some wood chips in the meantime, and all this heavy foot traffic, the truck coming in here dumping all this brush, that's making weed control pretty easy. So I'm solving a lot of problems here. Here's a shot just to put it into scale here. I'm 6 feet tall. The pile is above my head back up here in terms of level. It's probably 7 feet of fill on this end here. This is all fill that wasn't here before. It's all fill I've moved here. It's all fill that came from neighbors. It's all fill from people getting rid of stuff that they didn't want that I could use. There's no garbage in here. There's no junk. This is clean fill. It's rock and logs for the most part, in soil. The biggest of the big logs that are, you know, this big around, to the little itty bitty tree trimmings, and even some mulch in here. I love the idea of taking somebody else's waste stream and putting it to use. So when you look at a pile like this, you realize there's a lot of potential in your area when it comes to surplus. That's the whole key and the whole point I wanted to make in this video. Look around your area. There's a ton of biological surplus out there. Logs, wood chips, mulch, tree trimmings, manures, fill dirt, rock. If you're looking for it, somebody's probably trying to get rid of it. Craigslist is a huge resource for it, and you can become the solution to somebody else's problem. A lot of this other fill would have eventually made its way to the dump. Some of it probably would have gotten recycled, but a lot of it might have ended up in the landfill. So now for me, it's essentially a big asset in terms of giving me land that I can grow on. It's a hugelkultur mound in a sense here, and it's putting organic matter into the soil that I'm gonna be growing in. A huge win for me that didn't cost me anything except time, and it's actually really fun moving this stuff. One of my favorite hobbies is moving mulch. So look around your area if you need things like this. There's a lot of surplus out there, you can probably find it. This is what I found, and it's working for me. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.